You're listening to the Wild Serenity Finding Inner Peace Your Way podcast. I'm your host, Maren Swenson, and on this show, we talk about finding peace from the inside out by shedding conformity and the need for others' approval and embracing your own wild truth, whatever that may be. Serene self-love is wild, radical honesty, and I invite you to come inward with me.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. So the topic that's on my mind this week, after some experiences I've had, is the topic of surrendering, which is kind of a buzzword these days, but a super cool concept that I feel like is really key to loving your life exactly how it is. So here's the thing with surrendering. It's easier said than done, which I get. Surrendering is letting go of your attachment to outcome. It's letting go of the expectation that things have to be exactly the way you design them. It's really putting a lot of trust in source energy and the universe and the concept that everything works out for the right reasons and that everything you experience and create is meant to be. So I've had this happen to me a few times in pretty concrete examples. And I want to share about them today. So I'll first start with, I had a dream just like 2 nights ago. I'm a glow coach. That's what I'm calling myself, right? So a glow coach means that I help women specifically find their inner voice and feel confident expressing it fully on the outside. And so we work on cultivating your inner glow, which is self-love and self-compassion and peace and trust and groundedness and wisdom, and like attunement to body, and then being able to express that on the outside as a fully expressed person, which means you don't hold things back and the glow you have inside radiates on the outside. Now, I love to do that through style and fashion and like that's kind of my specialty and my niche. But glow is really an internal energy. It doesn't mean that you necessarily look done up all the time or that you dress a certain way or that your hair is always perfect or you wear lipstick. It's none of that, right? Glow is an internal energy, and we can tell by just looking at someone, their aura and how they feel and how comfortable do you feel being around them, right? So that's what glow is. So I had this dream. And in my dream, I was at a family function and I came outside from the big house we were in, and there were all these other people there that I didn't know, like strangers. And I sat down at a table with with these women, and we got to talking, and they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like so confident and rattled off, "Oh, I'm a glow coach." And they were like, "What's a glow coach?" And I said, "I help women find their inner voice and gain confidence and freedom to express it on the outside, particularly through dress and fashion." And I like rattled it off like I had it memorized, and it was so easy for me to say. And the girl who I was talking to in my dream was like, "Oh, sign me up. I want to start right now. Can you be my coach? I'm available these days." And like, it was that easy. And then I woke up from my dream and I like for a minute, I was so invested in this dream that I thought it was real. And I woke up and I was like, "Oh my gosh, who's this client of mine? I have a client." And then I realized it was a dream. And I'm thinking, "Oh, okay." But then I thought, gosh, could it be that easy? I've always had dreams that like have special meaning to me, and I get a lot of inspiration and downloads from them. And so I'm waiting to see how that manifests for me. But the reason that that one stuck out to me, and why I thought it was cool, is because of an earlier experience I'd had with a dream. So several years ago, I lived in Texas. I was married to Pat, but he lived in Utah and I had to live in Texas. If you don't know the story, it's kind of a long story, but we both of our previous divorce settlements had our kids in those states. And so if we left the states, that meant we left the kids. So we stayed where we were respectively to do what was best for our family. And I was desperately searching for a new job. I'd had I was an English teacher and I had okay, so let me back up for a second. When I moved to Texas, I was 30 years old, about to be 30 years old. I went through a divorce and I had previously been a stay-at-home mom. I taught piano and I had two little babies. And suddenly I was like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do to support my family. And so um, I got my teaching certificate through a program that let me do it really quickly because I already had a bachelor's degree. And so I did that. And then I got a job quickly for that next year. And I was teaching at this school. It was a public charter school, and it was like a school's equivalent of the office. It was so crazy and and kind of dysfunctional, and it was like total baptism by fire. I was the only English teacher for the entire quote high school, but it was a K through 12 school. And so I taught grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. So even though I taught English, I really taught four different subjects because there's a different lesson, like it's a different trajectory for each grade. Um, and that was me. And then I had a math teacher and a science teacher and a history teacher, and that was it in the high school era or portion of that school. It was like we went through three principals that year. One of the principals, the second principal we had, she didn't even know she was going to be the principal. We were like at a staff meeting one day, and the superintendent came to visit, and they were like telling us how our current principal was going to go take a district position. And finally, someone raised their hand and they're like, well, who's our new principal going to be? And the superintendent looked over at this lady and she was like, well, we haven't talked to her yet, but we were hoping that Dr. So-and-so was going to take the position. And this really awesome lady, Dr. So-and-so, who I won't name, laughed and was like, news to me. And then she became our principal. And then she got out and got a new job several months after that. And then we actually ended the year with no principal at all for the last 3 days of school because there was a lot of drama. And this poor lady was also trying to find a new job and get to a better situation. So we had a lot of turnover. It was a little nutty. And it would pay me $10,000 less a year than like a traditional school district would. So I really needed something different. And I was desperately searching. So I went and I interviewed. I applied everywhere. I applied to all the districts around me. But I really needed something that would be close to home. I was really struggling with the transition from being able to be home with my little girls to suddenly being full time and not being available for extracurriculars and having such chaotic mornings and being so burnt out at night. Like it was really hard. And so I remember I finally got a job interview at this one school, and it was in the district that I lived in, but it was at a school very far away. Like the district was huge. And so with horrible traffic, and when I would be driving to and from work every day, it was like a 50-minute commute one way. That was really hard on me and my schedule and my little family. And so, but it was also like I needed the job. And so I remember getting this interview and I was like disappointed and I was feeling a little hopeless because I had had some preliminary interviews at other districts, but they never moved me up or went anywhere. And I was just really like, oh my gosh, I got to have something. I was feeling super grumpy about going to this job interview. I like needed the job, but I didn't want to take it. I was hoping for something better, but I needed the pay increase and I needed just a better working environment. But obviously I was a little upset. So I almost didn't go to the job interview because I was like, there's no way I can do this with my family. I'm going to have to say no, and I'm going to be stuck at this other school. I'm not going to be getting paid as much, but I can't do the commute. I can't do it. I already had long work hours and I was already missing so much time with the kids and couldn't get them to stuff. I didn't know what I was going to do with childcare. Like there was a lot. So I nearly canceled my interview. And here's why I didn't. Is because that night before I had a dream. In my dream, very clear dream, I went to this job interview and they liked me so much and I was so impressive to them. They had me do like a mock lesson and I killed it. I gave them the best English lesson with, I think I did like imagery or something, wrote on the whiteboard. I mean, I knocked it out of the park. I was charismatic and I was smart and knowledgeable and engaging and all the things you needed to be as a teacher. And they liked me so much that they were like, well, listen, you're so amazing that we're not going to give you this position, but we're going to give you a position in one of our other schools in the district because you're so awesome. And I think that will be better for you. And here's the school, and it's this close to your home. And I was like, man, did I feel good? Like I'm on top of the world. I just had the best job interview and I just got, my, at the time, dream job. And it's super close to my house and it's going to be great. And I woke up and for a minute I was on cloud nine. I was like, all my stress was gone and I was feeling so good and I was so excited. And then reality hit me and I was like, oh my gosh, it was just a dream. And then I was kind of angry. I kind of felt like, thanks God. Why would you do that to me? Got me my hopes all up and now I'm feeling like, ugh, this is awful. I still can't take this job. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? But there was something in that dream, and I'd had some counsel before that had told me to pay close attention to my dreams, that they would have messages for me. And so there's been a few other times throughout my life where I've interpreted some dreams and felt very clearly that they had strong messaging for me. And there was like a little ping in this one where I was like, okay, there's something here enough. It was so real. It felt so real. And I was very emotional in it. I was like, I think I'm going to have to go to this interview and just see. So I went to the interview, had to take a full half day off of work because it was such a long commute out to this school. And I killed it. I gave the best job interview. I did exactly how I did in my dream. I gave a great lesson on imagery. I was at the whiteboard. I was talking to them like they were my students and I had strong engagement. I mean, I had to give this interview in from like a whole committee of people. It wasn't like me and a principal. It was like a lot of people, department heads and other teachers and the whole admin team. It was very intimidating, but I had like done it in my sleep the night before. So I already knew what I was doing. That was cool. Give the job interview. And they were like, okay, we're very impressed. We'll let you know within a few days. So I leave the job and I was feeling again frustrated because I really didn't want to take it, but I was also like, okay, I did the best I could. I'm just going to have to let the universe like put me where it's going to. And I remember at the time being like, okay, God, you're going to have to lead me. Like it's in your hands. I'm surrendering, right? I had to give up my attachment to the outcome and just trust that the right thing would come along and it was going to be okay for me and my family because I had done everything I could. I'd prepared for my interview. I'd gone to it. And I just emotionally let go of all that. And then I just let it go. I forgot about it. I went back to work and I did my stuff and I was with my kids and it was all okay. The next day, I get a call from that principal and he was like, Maren, look, the bad news is, we're going to give the position at this school to someone else who interviewed, who honestly, you guys were on par, but she has a lot more experience than you. So we're going to go with her. And I felt relief and I felt a little bit of deflation at this. And then he said, but we were so impressed with you and your interview that I actually put in a few calls to some fellow principals recommending you to go interview at their schools. That's just something we like to do here in this district. We refer people that stand out to us to other principals. It's really good networking. And he's like, so I've passed your name along to some few people. I keep your phone on, you should be hearing from them. And I was like, oh, okay. So I hung the phone up, called Pat, and was like, Pat, you won't believe what's happening. And I was in the middle of trying to tell him about that experience when I got another phone call and I had to get off because it was a principal at a school 10 minutes from my house. 10 minutes from my house. It was a really nice school in a nice area. She called me and said, hey, this principal said you did a great job at this interview. I'd love to have you come in and interview for 7th grade ELA position. Are you available? And I was like, yeah, tell me when, I'll be there. I went in the next day for an interview, and by the 5 p.m., the end of that day, she called me back and offered me the job. Now, did my experience happen exactly the way it did in my dream? Not quite. Did that matter? No. Like, I don't know how better I can illustrate such an incredible concept of surrendering. I just had to let go. I had to let go and just trust that the right thing was going to come for me. And what ended up happening was because I had done the work that way, but then I'd also trusted and just let go, I got what I needed. I got a great job at a school close to me, and I was very lucky, and it ended up being a great job for me, and I made good friends, and I had lots of good experience, and it was a great school. So that's why my dream about the glow coach, I was like, could it be that easy? Might it happen like that? And my idea is that it might not happen exactly like that, but it could totally happen. And I'm feeling so excited about it and so lit up by it. Like the right person that I can help is going to come along, and I'm excited about that. So this is the reason, though. I have one more story to tell you, and I'll be quick. This is the reason why this concept of surrender is on my mind. So my husband and I, it's a Monday that I'm recording this, and we just got back from a weekend in Moab, Utah, which is so cool. If you ever want to go to Moab, ask me about it. We celebrated our 7th-year anniversary together, and we ran away for the weekend. And um, we weren't supposed to be in Moab. We were supposed to be in Florida on the beach at my parents' condo with Pat's sister and her husband, our really good friends. And it was supposed to be a really fun couples adults trip. And we were going to be, at the beach in Florida, and just beautiful. And we love to go there as much as we can. We get there like once or twice a year. But as you know, Florida has been experiencing some horrible hurricanes, and they had 2 like back to back. And they actually shut the airport down the day that we were supposed to fly out there. Now, we were pretty disappointed. My poor sister-in-law and her husband were very disappointed. Also, we had booked economy tickets trying to save money, which I just don't recommend doing anymore. I've had too many experiences where I'm like, I think it's better to just pay a little bit more in case of emergency. But anyways, we booked these tickets, and we were on separate airlines for our outgoing and return home trip because we did it through Expedia. And so we were able to get a credit for our outgoing flight because they shut the airport down and they let us just keep the credit. So that was okay. But we were sunk with our return flight home, which was originating in Florida back to Utah. And we were just going to be out the money because we weren't allowed to even change it. We couldn't even pay a fee to change it because of the price. We had bought such a basic economy ticket. And so I was like, hey, we're going to figure it out. It's fine. We're obviously not meant to be in Florida right now. I'm so grateful that, my home is not under duress. I'm so grateful we're here safely. I'm so grateful I don't have to evacuate. We're not flooding. Like, my heart hurt for the people in Florida who had just been storm after storm. And so I was like disappointed, but I have been in such a space of trust the last few years that it was pretty easy for me to be like, okay, we're not meant to be there, and something better is going to happen, or good will come out of it, or for whatever reason, like I just let go of that. And so we went to Moab instead, much closer, a little different. It wasn't a beach vacation, but it was still so fun. We had connected and had time together and just lapped up every second of it. And then on Sunday, I had said to my sister-in-law, I'm like, look, I'm not going to cancel our return flight home ticket yet because there's the small chance that like they could have bad weather again, or there could be an issue with the plane, or who knows, but something could happen where we'd either be able to change our flight or they'd give us a return credit. And she was like, they were like, oh, I mean, it's so unlikely. And I was like, yeah, but let's just wait till Sunday. And I really think either that might happen, or we're just going to be out the money and we'll figure it out and we'll plan another time to go. And so Sunday morning comes and I'm out to breakfast with my husband, and suddenly I get a text message, and my sister-in-law is like, hey, look, you can change our flight. I was like, what? So I call the airline and I talk to the nicest customer service lady. And she's like, yeah, there's a delay because of plane maintenance. So they're giving everyone on this flight the option to rebook. And I was like, okay. So I was like, well, I'm trying to rebook for a later date in November, but online it's not letting me. And she looks at it and she's like, oh, that's because you have to use this rebook. You have to rebook your ticket within 2 weeks. And that's outside of that time frame. And I'm like, I sit there for a minute and I'm thinking, okay, well, again, if I lose the ticket money, okay, but it's worth a shot pleading my case, and I'm going to do it nicely, and I'm going to see what comes of it. And I'm not going to be too upset either way. So I was like, hey, lady, you've been awesome to me. Here's what's going on. I explained the whole situation about how we were supposed to be in Florida about the hurricanes, and we booked our ticket here, and now we can't do this. And she was like, well, I can talk to a manager and see if maybe, since you're just trying to rebook it, if they'd let you extend the time frame. And I was like, would you really? And she's like, yeah, I'll do that. She was super cool. So she puts me on a hold. She goes and talks to her manager. She comes back and she's like, hey, guess what? They're going to let me extend your time frame and you can book it for this date. And I was like, so excited. And I'm like, okay, well, can you answer me another question? Do I have to pay a difference in fare and change fees? And she's like, well, we're not even supposed to be able to let you change on this economy ticket. And if we were going to let you change, it should be $50 a ticket. So 200 extra bucks for the four of us to do so. But let me go talk to a manager again and see, given the situation, if I can get him to change it and skip this. And I was like, okay. So and again, I was like, well, they might not, but that's okay. At least I'm not out the full ticket. I'd let go of my emotional attachment to this. She comes back from the hold and she's like, guess what? They're going to let me change, waive the fees. So the only thing you have to pay is the fare difference in ticket, and it ends up being only $5 more. So I'll need your credit card payment for $20 because it was, $5 for the 4 tickets. And you're all set to go, sweetheart. And I was like, I felt so good and I was so excited. And I was like, you know what? I know this is a great problem to have, me trying to figure out when I get to go to Florida, in lieu of all the other world problems out there. But it was the thing for me. We were really excited to go on this trip and have this alone time and this adult couple time and all these fun things. And we were really, really grateful to not lose all that money. And so I was just, again, so grateful that I'd been able to let go of my expectation for that and not feel so keyed up about the expectation that I had to be in Florida at this time and I had to have this money for these tickets. And I just let go of all that and I let it ride. And now we kind of get 2 anniversary trips because we went down to Moab and now we get to go to Florida. And actually, it's even going to work out better to go to Florida for the weekend we're going to in November because we're going to have a better situation where we're staying. My parents owned a few properties there, and the nicer, newer one is going to be finally renovated and done, so we get to stay there. Like all these things worked out. It's going to be great. So that's my message to you today, is about surrendering. Can you let go of the need to control? Can you find trust and peace inside yourself to know that whatever happens, it's okay and it's going to be for the best? It's not always easy to do. Sometimes the things we face are humongously hard, but whether that changes or not, the only thing we can control is our attitude. And life is so much better when we have our good attitude, right? I would really encourage you to spend some time thinking about this. And also, I have the most fabulous book suggestion on this topic. I have read lots and lots of books, you guys. Like, oh my gosh, my library is just bursting to the seams with self-development and self-help. But this book stands the test of time for me because it's not a traditional self-help. It's actually an autobiography of this man's experiment with this concept of surrender and how he lived his life and applied it in all these areas and what came of that exercise. It's called The Surrender Experiment. It's by Michael A. Singer. I listened to it and I loved listening to it because he narrates it himself and he's emotional and, I get a feel for who he is, but reading it would be just as wonderful too. But that book was very touching and tender, and it brought me to tears a few times. And it's, out of all the books I've ever read, that one stays with me, and it was a very spiritual, tender experience to hear his story. It's also very inspiring, and it's been life-changing for both me and my husband. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'm wrapping up here, but on a side note, I would really love to hear your experiences with this topic. Can you look back in times in your life and seen where you've just had to let go and put your faith in the universe? and let go of that attachment, your emotional attachment to the outcome, and just let it be. And then what good things have transpired because of that? Or what lessons have you learned from that? Right? It's not that we get what we want because of it, but we get what we need probably. So I'd love to hear from you. I'm easy to get a hold of. You can message me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'd love for you to be in my private Facebook group, also linked in the show notes. I'm taking clients now for my coaching services. I can help with a lot of things, but again, my specialty is helping you glow inner and outer. So I do a lot of work with our inner development, mindset, attitudes, triggering, getting in sync with your body, and then supporting you in becoming that expressed woman. What are you doing on your outer life? What actions do you take? What habits do you have? And then we do spend some time working on what is your style? Are you choosing the colors and the prints and the fabrics that energetically match who you are and who you want to be? Or are you hiding? Are you repressing? What is it? So that's what I work on. That's what I help you glow with. I'd love to hear from you. Please get in touch with me. You can also email me info@marenswenson.com. You can find out more about me on my website, marenswenson.com. And I'd love to hear from you. Okay, much love.